I got into a unsolicited confrontation with a member of the National Guard. He told me to stand back, get back from where I was. I said, I'm not doing nothing but looking. He said, get back. And then he pointed a gun to my face. The riot started after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King in April of 1968 when he was murdered. Some crazy person in America actually took a gun to a reverend minister of peace and love and assassinated him. And the African American community from the East Coast to the West Coast, they started rioting, if you will. And when they mentioned the riots in downtown Wilmington, as a young child, young man, just wanting to see the news, I wanted to go downtown and see the actual scene of a riot. I've never seen a riot before, but I went down to see the riots. And it was, as everybody said, you know, people were very, very upset, expressing their anger. It got so bad in Delaware that the governor called out the National Guard. National Guard was called out all over the country because America thought the country was going to burn. Black people were that upset. So they brought the National Guard all over the state, all over the country, and even in downtown Wilmington.
Yes, that occupation was the longest military occupation of any major city in the history of the United States of America. And I think it was done purposely. I was in Vietnam when I saw a picture in the Jet magazine that the National Guard, the same uniform I had over there on, was here in my city for 9 months. And I think that's why I came home with all these illegal ways I wanted to take over America. That was a wake-up call for those of us who kept our minds on God and on the Constitution. The wake-up was that we are citizens. We need to stand up for our citizenship. Even today, I have people talking about we might have to start our own political party because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party both have failed us because they're no different than each other when it comes to the domination of the wealth and the institutions of racism in this country.
I was just a high school student, and we planned a peaceful demonstration from all the high schools to Rodney Square. We started marching from Wilmington High, which is at Lancaster Avenue and DuPont Road. Supposed to march down 4th Street, which we did, got to Market Street. Somebody threw a brick and through a storefront window and all hell broke loose. There was looting uptown in the downtown stores, and later that evening, then the western city began to burn. Madison Street, Jefferson Street, Monroe Street, in that area where Hicks Anderson Center is currently located. They were a major occupying force, and those of us who lived through that will, you know, we're not going to forget machine guns and bayonets being put in our face just because we were walking down the street. It was a terrible situation.
But that began me recognizing firsthand, I guess, the state of racial relations in this country. That whether you're young or old, if you're black, white America at that time, throughout its history, will treat you in a way that they must control you every way they could. And it was surprising to me. Up until that point, I considered myself a true blue American. But it seemed like that sparked something in me that even though I love America, America don't necessarily love me. I felt like I could no longer go along to get along. And I began asking questions about everything, particularly about me, my history, my family, and then black people in America. And it started raising questions that until this day, I never could get completely answered. Why does America treat black people the way they do? The black high school in Wilmington at that time was Howard High School. I challenged myself and went to Wilmington High School, which was predominantly white. But I went on and signed up for it and ended up getting accepted. I wanted to begin showing white America that I can do things in spite of what they say. And I graduated from Wilmington High School. And again, still interested in black history, me and myself, understand myself. I said I can go to a traditional black school and get black history, or I can challenge the system and go to a predominantly white school, the so-called elite school in Delaware, University of Delaware. And I said, I'm going to come from Southbridge. I was born and raised in South Wilmington. I'm going to end up at the University of Delaware and graduate with a degree just to show them that I can. And in fact, I ended up graduating with 2 degrees, a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and in African American History, with a minor in Urban American History. That began my work in civil rights. Kingswood Community Center just happened to be in one of the most distressed black communities in Wilmington. It's Riverside is what it was called. Black people, white people, nobody went in Riverside. It was crime infested, it was full of poverty and struggling people. I said, if I'm as good as I think I am, let me go where the biggest problems are and see if I can help turn that community around. So I went there from 1981 to 1994 as Director of Community Development. That got me out working. First, I took over the Crisis Alleviation Program, helping black people in emergencies. If they're being evicted, getting put out, ain't got food to eat, ain't got clothes for the back, those things. Through that program, I developed initiatives that fed many people, that housed many people, kept many families together in the Riverside community. But basic understanding of grassroots organization started in terms of putting in practice at Kingswood Community Center.
I was on the faculty at the University of Delaware for 26 years, minus 8 years when I took a leave of absence to be the first African American mayor of Wilmington.
We all thought that Dr. Seals would have behind, he had a PhD in urban affairs, that we thought he was the best man for the job because an urban affairs professor usually knows, what's going on. First 4 years of his administration was kind of troubling in the fact that, people in power didn't necessarily appreciate the first African American mayor being in there.
Blacks have been a majority part of the population here in the city for a good 10 or 15 years, but only a small segment of the African American community was registered to vote. And Keith and others felt that if we were to effect change in Wilmington, we had to have greater influence on city government. He greatly elevated the numbers of African Americans who were registered to vote. And as I said, I frankly would not have been the mayor without having more African Americans registered to vote, and not just registered to vote, but at election time, he and the ministers put in place a well-designed plan for turning out the African American vote. I won the 1992 Democratic primary in September. The local newspapers reported that I got roughly 53% of the vote. That's a large number for African Americans to come out in a primary. Normally, the percentage and the number of people who come out in a primary tends to be very low, like 5 or 6 or 7,000 of African Americans, if that number. But in 1992, roughly 52% of the African Americans who were registered to vote came out and voted, and we were able to have some success in electing the first African American mayor.
During his tenure as president of NAACP, he and the members of his board and other people in the community worked collectively and had the most successful, I think, around 10,000 people, new registrants to vote within the city of Wilmington. And there's no question that was a primary factor in having the Honorable James H. Seals Jr. elected. In the background, I think Keith I know for a fact that he told Jim Seals that he'd done a poll and the numbers were there, that if he wanted to be mayor, he could be mayor.
Mr. Booker became president in 1989. He was president from 1989 to 1999, a 10-year span. He was, in fact, president of the Wilmington NAACP and the statewide branch of the NAACP.
So I said, what's going on in Wilmington or in Delaware that is involved in civil rights? And I began researching, and I saw the NAACP was the oldest civil rights organization in America, founded in 1909. I began looking at that. I wanted to make sure, even though it said National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, I said, are they just colored people running the NAACP? What I found was they didn't riot and protest and fight like the Black Panther Party. They approached the system and challenged the system through the legal process. They would go in, investigate, and when they seen it wrong, somebody stopped us the right to vote, they took them to court. They had lawyers that took them to the Supreme Court on many, many occasions. You could argue and fight. I like arguing and fighting, but they did more than that. They sat down, got lawyers together, filed legal briefs, took it to court, and began winning. And that's all the biggest successes we had in our community was NAACP and other similar organizations fighting in court.
He also carried the NAACP through difficult times, trials and tribulations. When he left, when he completed his tenure as president, the Wilmington branch NAACP was on solid footing financially, and it was also on solid footing in terms of the perspective of the community and continuing to be the effective voice and advocacy agency that it has been in the city for 100 years.
I had a not too positive image of the NAACP back then, and he kind of helped change that. His leadership helped change it.
Yeah, he took over as head of the NAACP in 1989. The chapter had some problems. It was coming out of bankruptcy, apparently violated in some way its nonprofit status with the IRS. And he took over at a time when the leadership was in turmoil. To his credit, he was able to right the ship. He's brought a lot of energy to his position. He was well liked, well respected, very articulate. He attracted new people to the NAACP and was very good at helping to dramatize issues that were present in the Black community.
I mean, for one, an immigrant in this nation, and I was always drawn to the NAACP because I am a person of color, and this was one organization I turned to see, are they also advocating issues that relate to me? I found the Delaware NAACP and its chapters so fragmented, and this is an organization that had leaders such as Lit Mitchell, Jim Sills, and some amazing folk in the past. Keith's leadership and financial acumen that got the NAACP not just out of bankruptcy, but coveted awards, national awards. But it was under his leadership that from a fall, it came back on the national stage.
There was some Caucasian Americans upset because they were getting ready to get an African American state representative here in Wilmington. And they was raising so much hell that me and my friend was saying, we need to get out of here. But Keith came in, walked in the door, and he seen what was happening. He walked up on the stage and he said, if I didn't know no better, I think I was in Mississippi, Georgia, or somewhere. And all the people got quiet. All the rowdy people, the rowdy people that didn't get quiet, the ones that got quiet rushed them out. And his appeal to them led to an African American person becoming the state representative from their neighborhood, and they, acknowledged it and moved on with it. He showed me a lot of integrity there because, I'm that kind of person now, but I wasn't that kind of person then.
Look at the Wilmington Police Department or the State Police Department today, and we know, Black Lives Matter is a movement out of this deep-rooted discrimination. But an organization like NAACP is still very, very relevant. It still, unfortunately, matters. So it's almost like one step forward, two step back, one step forward. It's a dance that we in the community cannot continue.
Non-inclusion in the decision-making of how they police our community, because even today, they police our community like they police in Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq and etc. Militarily. That's why this country had to build up a military equipment around major cities like Ferguson. That's all our cities. We had the same military build up here. Some of the things that go on in the country is really treason against the Constitution of this country. Look, if you're a veteran, then you already done fought for this country, so you have a right to speak against what you see is wrong. And then taking that out to other African American and Latinos and poor whites in our community, that you have a right to speak up. Yes, sometimes we're voting for the lesser of two evils, but let's get the lesser of two evil. Maybe we can get to that mind as a productive citizen and let them recognize that these issues are affecting all of us. You know, nowadays it's just as many white children in jail as it was African American.
Soon after Rodney King related riots, News Journal was following him for a short period of time, and apparently he got a phone call from the KKK saying that we are the new KKK. So Mr. Keith R. Booker very calmly says, if you are the new KKK, can I as an African American become a member? There was silence at the other end. That one little piece that I read in the newspaper is what I saw in my 21 years of working with him as in the community. So he's the coolest, calmest cat out there, and very needed in times of crisis.
I see these inner demons, they all up in my face, and I see they all be facing, but they all be looking faceless. It's sad when I see haters mad at me, killing, looting, shooting in these Wilmington streets. It's crazy to hear her sound, it's local to hear her flow, don't you know? Wilmington's power is in its people.
There's a wind changing, it's changing. I hear the wind changing, I see the wind changing. I'm the one changing, yeah. There's a wind changing, I feel the wind changing. I'm the one changing, I am. The wind's changing.
Tired of all the talkers, tired of all the taking, tired of all the violence, killings in the making. All it does is bring us down. I see the hate in her eyebrow frown. I see them staring like some clowns. They got my people looking down for the loved ones on the ground, but no one hears a sound when the cops come around.
There's a wind changing, oh yeah. I hear the wind changing, oh yeah. I see the wind changing, I am. I'm the one changing, yeah. There's a wind changing, I feel the wind changing. This is the beginning, yeah. I'm the one changing.
Cursing all you haters, cursing all who think they greater than Christ. My spiritual home fit nice when living right, serving Christ. They don't do nothing with their life, but they wanna talk about us like they know what's right. I'm just saying, they delaying all that playing, they should